Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, Maverick family. Good evening, new viewers from all over the world. The world is watching the Maverick News Channel tonight, and I can see that from the various streams across all the platforms we're on. Welcome, everyone. We have a lot of people watching tonight, and no doubt because of the situation in Russia, where we will be focusing some of our attention because of all the media attention surrounding the whereabouts, the questions surrounding the rumors surrounding the whereabouts of some Russian generals in the aftermath of what we saw happen over this past weekend with the attempted coup, whatever that was. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we have a bunch of other stuff lined up tonight too, and that's because we have a special guest back making a return visit. Visit number 2 from Joseph M. Leonard. Hello, sir. How are you this evening? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be back, and it's not likely to be breaking news to anyone here. But some other podcasters say, like to have you back, and they never do, of course, all part of their hype and show promotion. But you don't need that kind of hyperbole. And I finally launched my podcast Saturday, June 24th, the Constitutionalist Politics podcast. I hope to avoid all that, getting caught up in my own hype and that kind of stuff. But I'm sure today's show will be equally controversial as last one, and snowflake melting like last one, and start more blathering on social media, and firestorm from the last show. I got a lot of hate, like Joe supporting Nazis. Nowhere in that conversation, they're twisting and distorting bull, mischaracterization, as nowhere did I say or even imply that I support the so named Nazi brigade. Let's put that in quotes. All right. And I need to call Hillsdale College here in Michigan. They're just a few counties over. I need to call up Paul Arnn, or Larry Arnn rather, and say, you know what? I beg of you, you've got to bring me in to do a course on reading and listening comprehension, because nobody has it these days.
So people took away from our last interview that you support Nazis?
Yeah.
Where did they get that?
Well, it was the Nazi, right? I did not explicitly say that I indeed fully believe if you wear Nazi regalia in any way, shape, or form for any reason, then you are a moron with perhaps a Halloween time exemption. But I gave a Paul Harvey, the rest of the story style, historical facts and context, right? Of the why that they seem to think it okay thing to do, which again, I think is moronic for any reason. You're inviting attack on yourself, and the Putin denazification talking point I debunked, that came of it. You're just the vision.
Well, Joe, I'll tell you this, Joe. For those of you who don't know, maybe missed the last broadcast, Joe is an author. He wrote a book called Terror Strikes, which is why we had him on the program to talk about his book. That's not why he's here tonight. He's just joining us to talk about the news of the day. I thought it would be great to have him back because he brings a different perspective to the table here. He likes to, in his words, piss people off, which I think is his roundabout way of saying he likes active and lively discussion and debate on topics.
Yeah, we're not always going to agree on things. That's, my 80% friend, as Ronald Reagan used to say, is my ally, not my enemy.
Right.
We're going to disagree at times. We got focus on the stuff we can agree on against our real common enemies, like the left, the fascocrats, as I call them.
So Joe's going to help us tonight with commentary, and I think it will add some spice to the conversation and the coverage. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we have a lot of other stuff to talk about tonight as well. We have the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. We have Joe Biden's reaction to that, where he is expressing disappointment. I personally, honestly, I'm pretty happy about it because I have always viewed affirmative action as being systemically racist, but that's my opinion. So I probably pissed a lot of people off there. Myself, Joe. What else are we going to talk about? We have some footage from all these riots happening over in France. We have Dylan Mulvaney talking about the impact on of the Bud Light ad fiasco, the fallout from that, the impact it's had on, is it his or hers? I don't know. What I don't know what Dylan's pronoun is. But in any event, is that a countdown for some sort of a bomb or something? Like, what is that?
You know what? I'm going to reach over and unplug my phone because I did forget to do that.
For a loop.
That
like,
won't.
What is that?
That won't fix this, because what that was is my cell is attached by Bluetooth to my home unit.
Right.
So somebody randomly texts me, my home system announces through the house who just texted me. So let me unplug the phone, but random text may set off an announcement. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Well, while he does that, I'll tell you that we're also going to talk. So we'll get Dylan Mulvaney talking about how, Dylan Mulvaney is sad, I guess, because things didn't go the way things were planned. Yeah, you're responsible for the most destructive ad campaign probably in global history. No wonder you're a little depressed. Anyway, we'll talk about that. We also have Canada's defense minister, Anita Anand, meeting with her British counterpart, talking about, the usual things like how much money they're going to send to Ukraine, how much more money they're going to send for demining operations with NATO, all that kind of stuff. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about the European Union. They have agreed to make security commitments to Ukraine. So they're reinforcing that. And it seems like they may be laying the foundation to send in European troops to Ukraine. So buckle up, everybody. Not only is that going to be a rough ride, we've got one heck of a ride ahead. So what's that phrase? What do you say? It's sit down, buckle up, and sit down, shut up, and I don't remember. Anyway, you get the idea. All right, we'll be right back after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. Yeah.
I don't remember that phrase either, but yeah, buckle up, Buttercup. If there's any snowflakes that surfed in, you're gonna get triggered. Sorry, not sorry.
Also tonight, just speaking to all of the people out there who are freedom fighters, you are probably noticing, and this is sort of on the Canadian side, Joe, so you're maybe not up to speed on this. And in fact, very few people are, because there aren't too many people sort of in the loop on this. But I will tell you this. Yesterday, I promised that we would keep you up to date on what is happening with these efforts to put together a new convoy. And this is happening. And you are probably seeing people from various groups again rising, bubbling to the surface on social media. And even tonight, you will see that some of these people are sort of, I guess it's posting material that is acting as, I think, a prelude of things to come, a preview, if you will. There not a lot of information being released to the public at this point, and I don't have all of the details. I don't think anyone does, but I can tell you to stay tuned, pay attention, even if it's just out of curiosity. But they are getting things organized and ramping things up. And I do know, and I said this last night, that this new convoy will be happening in Toronto. It will happen sometime between the middle of August and sometime in September. No specific date has been announced. But keep your ear to the ground. Keep your eyes open. Keep tuning in here, because we'll have updates for you over the course of the next couple of months, or month and a half, or whatever it is. And as information becomes available, we will keep you up to date right here on the Maverick News Channel.
Yeah, we need to keep them going annually till Justin's ousted, and we need to get them going. There was a minor one that tried to copy yours in the United States that didn't quite come off as well. But if we do these annually, we need to do it here in the U.S. till Joe Biden is ousted too.
Yeah. So that's just, again, a little bit of information. I gave you some last night. We'll keep you up to date. But let's dig into the news of the day, Joe. And first up tonight, our lead story involves fallout from this unrest, this rebellion, as it's being described by some, an attempted coup by others. Mainstream media in the West making a lot out of this tonight. They're asking where two generals are, specifically. Well, here, I'll just run it down. Here's Yahoo News. This is actually a Reuters wire piece. And here, I'll roll this little video that they've put together. They're saying one of Russia's top generals may have been arrested and hasn't been seen in public since Saturday. Sergei Sorovikin, and I did report this yesterday, that he had been arrested. And there are many reports tonight, including reports out of Russia, indicating that that may actually be the case. And there it is, the Moscow Times saying that he has been arrested. And that's where also I wouldn't say it's confirmation at this point, but it looks like it's likely that that is the case. And of course, over the weekend, we saw these Wagner fighters progressing toward Moscow. They got to within about 125 or 100 kilometers of the capital. And then a deal was struck where Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, was assured that he would not be charged. His troops would be spared any repercussions from this, I guess, again, whatever you want to call it, coup or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, it was defused. But now we're seeing that, in the wake of all of this, some people, and especially in the Western media, trying to have a field day with this and say, oh, this shows that Vladimir Putin is very, very weak. But maybe not the case, because I think that Vladimir Putin, and this is my opinion, has played this in a very smart way. He was able to defuse whatever pushback he was getting. And at the same time, I think he has been able to flush out anyone who maybe is opposed to him and may have been disloyal. And as a result, we're now seeing that there's a possibility that maybe two generals may have gone rogue on him from within, or may have been doing things they ought not have been doing. And so you've got the first general we just mentioned, and we've got also Valery Gerasimov, who has also not been seen in public since the weekend. And there's speculation that he has also potentially been arrested or may be arrested. However, I would say, and then I'm going to throw it over to you, Joe, I would say this. I would take all of this with a grain of salt. I'd be very cautious in putting a lot of stock in anything right now, because the reality is there's so much, I guess, propaganda, misinformation. I would say the potential for even outright lies are surrounding all of this. The reality is it's very difficult to know what the actual truth is, because the Russians are going to be reluctant to reveal too much information. The West probably, aside from the intelligence information that maybe the CIA has, and we don't even know how reliable that would be, and that they're feeding that to the media. And then there's a propaganda aspect to that, where they're going to try to spin it with a pro-West, pro-NATO, pro-US position. So I don't know how much stock you can put in these Western media reports. And the reports coming out of Moscow, I don't know if even those media outlets are getting really transparent or thorough information, so that you've got really the truth going on there, because I think this is still a situation that's unfolding. And the players, I think Putin and the government probably are playing things very close to their chest. They don't want to reveal too much. And this is why I think we're seeing this activity right now as well, which I think is taking some people by surprise. So I'm sitting back waiting. I'm not drawing any conclusions on any of this. I'm just telling you what's being said in the media, because it's obviously a volatile situation. There is absolutely stuff going on, but what is it? I can't really say, and I'm not going to sit here and say that any of these media reports are even accurate at this point. I just think it's too early. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm glad you said what you said, how you said it. My very first note on the paper, my talking point notes, is I'm like you, kind of withholding to some degree, keeping my powder dry, as the saying goes, right? Because there's a whole lot of rumor, whole lot of hearsay, whole lot of speculation, whole lot of propaganda. Because again, I wrote tinyurl.com, Putin atrocity apologists. In there, I said, eventually, some way, shape, or form, somehow, someone would move on Putin. Didn't know when, didn't know how, but I agree with some saying this could potentially be false flag to shake out those forces within Russia that might earnestly move on Putin. So there's just way too much speculation and hearsay to make anything definitive. I do have a couple points that I wrote down that I think are worthy of making. Like, first, Prigozhin, if he truly was moving, why do you stop short of Moscow? That something doesn't smell right here. But yeah, if you've made a deal with Putin, how stupid are you to think Putin would honor any deal? Expect a polonium capsule any day now, right? The next thing is that stinks to holy heaven here is Lukashenko out of Belarus somehow supposedly brokers this deal when no one but me seems to be talking about. He has Belarusian rebels trying to overthrow him currently. So guy they're trying to overthrow prevents the overthrow of the guy he's the puppet for. It stinks to holy hell here, but most people don't know. Belarusian rebels have been attacking Russian forces staging in and through Belarus because they want to overthrow the Putin puppet in Belarus and try to become an independent republic like Ukraine did. So, and the only other point here is I keep hearing about the Putin invasion of Ukraine as if it just happened. Uh, Crimea? Does no one remember Crimea being invaded during Obama? Sovereign part of Ukraine then. He put it on pause for a while, and now he is expanding the war. It's not a new war, it's an expansion of an ongoing war. And as I explained in the last episode, my atrocity chapter, dozens of historical figures of Russia, the endless century plus of atrocities out of Russia, including in Ukraine. This is like what number occupation of Ukraine by Russians? I've lost count.
So yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons I wanted you on the program. Is I mean you have a different perspective, a different opinion on the situation in Ukraine, and a different opinion on the situation in Russia too. I think from mine a little bit. And do you want to explain how you view the war in Ukraine?
Well, like with most things, nothing is ever black and white, right? There's a whole lot of gray, and I like to say, oh darn it, that thought left my head. But let me go on to the other one I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the whole situation. Biden corrupt, Zelensky corrupt, but it, please, Putin apologists, spare me. Putin is the hero in this somehow. I mean, it's still an unprovoked reinvasion of a sovereign nation, and spare me the NATO encroachment talking points that's been around for the last 30 years, and he only went in a few years ago. So to me, the unprovoked invasion of Georgia, the unprovoked invasion of Chechnya, the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, and Finland before World War II, Poland as part of World War II, Russia invaded also, you know, the previous occupation of Ukraine. So nobody's clean in here. Oh, I thought it out of the thought. I'm always about principles, not personalities. And sadly, I see some fellow people on the right, as I am, conservatives or Christitutionalists, as I now call myself, who artificially adopt an anti-Ukraine, pro-Putin position because they got to oppose Biden on everything. Anything Biden says, they got to immediately say, he says black, they say white. He says left, they say right. He says up, they say down. I don't deal in that. I deal in solid principles every time, and an unprovoked invasion by a tyrant who is a dictator, been in charge for 20 plus years now. It is not a hero here. But again, let me repeat, Zelensky, corrupt. I don't support Zelensky. I support the Ukrainian people. I do not support sending money because they're all corrupt. It's all money laundering coming back to the Bidens and others. I support sending bread if you're hungry. I support sending bullets to shoot, guns to shoot them, tanks to fight back with, F-16s, not modern, actually trade F-16s to Poland so they can send MiGs to the Ukraine. I'm all for that. Tangible assets so they can defend themselves, not fungible monies.
So you don't see the logic or you don't see the validity in the argument that we behind the NATO encroachment argument? You don't
No,
buy that
no.
at all.
Not one bit. NATO Article 5 invoked one time in 80 years of a NATO defensive, purely defensive, never collectively invaded anybody, was never going to invade Russia. Ukraine was never a threat to Russia, ever, anytime, at all. And again, Article 5, Afghanistan after 9/11. It's the only Article 5 implication ever invoked.
But you don't recall the promise made after the fall of the Berlin Wall that NATO would not expand, and then it did expand, and it's now sitting right on Russia's doorstep, and you're not acknowledging the statements from Putin and Russia over and over again, saying that that would be unacceptable, that Ukraine is the line in the sand, and if Ukraine is folded into NATO, that would be unacceptable to them, and they would have to respond.
Well,
You don't see that?
I acknowledge the talking point. I don't buy it one bit. It's bull. Again, NATO has yes, okay.
So why do you think Russia went into Ukraine?
Putin has also always said that people ignore. He plans on putting the Soviet Union back together again. People conveniently leave all that out.
You really think so?
Yes, he was planning.
You think that's the motivation behind this?
Read the book Putin's Brain, okay? The insiders.
Sometimes Lori's on here and she turns her camera off and it's like Spock's brain. But that's another story. just her voice. It's like Spock's brain.
But
and I'm sorry. That's
fine.
Please continue.
So yeah, I mean the NATO thing. We would only do this and that's it. But who has been the aggressors here always? Again, I laid out all Russian aggressions over the past 100 years. NATO has never invaded a single country, not one single time, except Afghanistan following 9/11. Oh, that's one I forgot. The unprovoked invasion of Russia into Afghanistan, which created the whole bin Laden situation. So NATO expansion is only a threat to Russia and Putin in that he wants to acquire more territory. It is never, has never, will never threaten to invade like Belarus, to take that away from the Russian puppet sphere of influence. We will help promote undermining of Lukashenko, but we're not going to invade.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people lay out the argument just as you have. I hear other people say that. You know, I don't subscribe to it. I do believe that he was provoked. I believe Russia was provoked because NATO has basically laid claim to Ukraine. I think it is, and Zelensky himself has now said that Ukraine is now a de facto NATO country. It's just a matter of formalizing it with documentation and signatures. But beyond that, I see why. I absolutely understand why that is perceived by the Russians as an existential threat to their sovereignty.
Let me say that there's actually no de facto about it. The only thing missing is the signature on the NATO treaty.
Well, I'm quoting Zelensky. That's what he said about a week ago.
I'm saying this because Bill Clinton made it U.S. and by extension NATO policy way back in the 90s. Ukraine gives up their nukes. We will defend Ukraine. Have people forgotten that?
Mm-hmm. Well,
and we didn't when they went into Crimea. We sat by, did nothing. So why wouldn't Putin think, why can't I roll my tanks right?
So why is it okay to send? Why do you think it's okay to send the weapons when we know that a lot of those weapons are not even accounted for, and we're finding them showing up on, the dark web and being sold to other countries, and the money flowing back to the corrupt politicians anyway? So how do you justify that?
Glad you brought that up because we covered that the last time.
Did we?
Charitable,
I don't even remember, but go
yeah,
ahead. Let's rewrite, repeat.
charitable giving. Let me give it to you from that way, right? I I won't give money
Mhm.
to the panhandlers. If you say you're hungry, I'll take you into the McDonald's and buy you a hamburger. If you're hungry, I'll help you. But the reason why we don't give money is usually what? We fear they'll buy booze with it. But you don't stop giving to charity because one or two person is buying heroin to shoot up with those donations, right? I said it already. They're all corrupt. There's going to be a degree of corruption here. Some of that is going to fall through the cracks. That doesn't mean that I'm going to just throw up my hands and say, screw all the Ukrainians. Go to hell, be enslaved by Russia again, like you were 100 years ago.
Well, I'd say there's a whole lot of corruption going on. It's pretty clear to me, or pretty evident, that there's a lot of money flowing to people who probably ought not have it.
Absolutely.
And I would say this too. I think in the long run, Ukraine will actually end up being enslaved to the NATO countries, because these weapons are not being given; they are basically being sold to and through loaned money to Ukraine, which they will be expected to pay back at some time. And if NATO is successful, the attempt will be, and they've already made reference to this, they'll want Russia to pay for that through reparations, because they want to hold Russia responsible for the war and the damages and the cost of rebuilding. That being said, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think Ukraine will ultimately be able to repay what will end up being trillions of dollars. And I think it's just a whole big mess where the people of Ukraine will be indebted. We will end up being indebted as taxpayers in the West, and we'll have to be paying for it for generations to come. And as a result, we are all being enslaved financially by these wealthy elite, if you want to call them that, even globalists, if you want to call them that, through this war, where they're saying that we're over there trying to defend democracy and fight for freedom, when in reality, all that this is doing is creating massive debt that is being loaded onto the backs of the middle class, the poor, the working people, just average, ordinary taxpayers, and the people of Ukraine. So in the end, I think that is a form of enslavement, if you want to describe it that way, and I do.
And I won't take too much issue with what you said. I agree. We too are being enslaved in the process through paying, because a lot of that debt will be forgiven and we'll be on the hook for it. So I don't dispute that. Things aren't always, again, black and white. There's a whole lot of gray in there. But, oh, doggone it.
In fact, just to kind of drive my point home, do you know when the debt from Britain was finally repaid to the United States through the Lend-Lease Act, which was implemented during World War II, allowing the United States to loan money to fund the war effort over there in World War II? Do you know when that was paid off?
No, I don't have that date.
2020. It took that long.
I remember the other thought that I had before I went off on my other one. Your position, I understand it. I just don't agree with it. I don't accept it. It was a wonderful notion pre-World War II, Neville Chamberlainism, and I go into that in Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a city near you. It's Neville Chamberlainism thinking,
which is to not get involved, don't get involved in the war, and some people are very critical of him because, he was delaying the entry of, the Allied forces into the World War II conflict to oppose Hitler. But please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we give you this, leave us alone. It's like what I said, making a deal with Putin. Prigozhin, if he thinks any deal with Putin is going to stand, he's a complete idiot. But he may have been in with it all along, and indeed could have been a false flag. Again, things are as cloudy as the Canadian wildfire haze is causing things down here. So these things aren't clear, and doggone it, I didn't get enough sleep. My thoughts keep escaping out my ear holes.
Well, that's okay.
But yeah, times are different. The Neville Chamberlainism concept of these tyrants today, like Hitler, you give them an inch, they perceive you as weak, and they're going to go for that full mile. And
well, I don't think it's hard to perceive Biden as weak since he keeps falling down every other day.
He's in his Bidenomics thing. Oh my God, what a bleeping joke that is. Yeah, Bidenomics is working, but actually it is. That isn't a Joseph Goebbels lie. It's actually the truth. But the whole story, Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, what they aren't telling you, the real truth behind the Bidenomics is Saul Alinsky and Cloward and Piven, destruction and undermining of the West from within. So it's working as Soros plans it.
So you said that you're cool with sending weapons, not money. But what about troops? Because today we are seeing that the European Union, and let me just bring up this from the Financial Times, and this will soon be reported in other media outlets as well. I was aware of this earlier today. The European Union is agreeing to make security commitments to Ukraine. It says here the EU has agreed to offer future security commitments to Ukraine as the bloc's leaders seek to agree long-term pledges for Kyiv against the backdrop of rising instability in Russia and entrenched battle lines in the war. The bloc's 27 leaders made the pledge at a summit today as the modest progress of Ukraine's counteroffensive and the fallout from Wagner's failed mutiny in Russia prompt capitals to rethink what support levels Kyiv requires. The agreement commits the EU to continue financing weapons supplies to Kyiv through the European Peace Facility, a fund paid for by capitals, according to a person briefed on the discussions. And they also, it says here, they also pledged to expand the EU's initiative to train Ukrainian troops and to explore the possibility of EU military missions to Ukraine if the conditions for it were deemed suitable. So they're talking about possibly sending troops into Ukraine. Now, I've said this for months. As this thing escalates, I said, folks, they're going to be coming very soon for your sons and your daughters. They're going to want to be sending American, Canadian into that conflict to get involved directly. It's only a matter of time because the Ukrainian troops are being worn down. They're using up the soldiers. They're being killed off. They need reinforcements. And where are they going to get them? They've only got one place to go, and that's to the NATO countries. And we're going to be sending our troops in there. This is going to turn into a head-to-head war between NATO and Russia, not just some proxy war between Russia and Ukraine. So that's where I see this going. We're seeing references to it tonight, finally, almost admitting it at the European Union. What are your thoughts, and do you support that?
Again, I'm not going to push back a whole lot. Some people, no doubt, hoped for that to happen all along. All right, let's just lay that on the table, right? No doubt some want that. Again, yeah, no troops. No troops. Now.
Okay, Neville Chamberlain.
No, but let me finish. Europe, this is your problem. Like I say in tinyurl.com.
Okay, Neville Chamberlain.
Atrocity pop. Germany, this is your fight. You send troops. Poland, this is your fight. You send troops.
An attack on one is an attack against all. They're all NATO countries.
This is not an Article 5 situation. This is not an attack on a NATO treaty nation.
You don't think they're going to be calling up Biden and saying, hey, Joe, could you send a little help, please?
They will.
Got to do your part, US of A.
They
Gotta do
will,
your
and I
part,
will say the
Canada.
same thing over and over again. No, not our fight. This is your backyard. Clean up
I don't know.
your
It seems.
mess.
What's the difference between it not being our fight? You know, if it's not our fight, why are we sending weapons then?
Because we are a charitable people, and
Charity.
we want people to be free
If we-
in their
it-
own sovereign nations.
Well, it seems to me it's like, you know, if you put a gun in somebody's hands, you're involved.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no denying that. It's to what degree, right? Again, black, white, whole lot of gray
In fact,
there.
I'll put it to you this way, Joe. Let me put it to you this way. I think it's cowardly. I think it's a scuzzy thing to do. I think that putting a gun into someone's hands and saying, "Here you go, just go over there and kill that guy, and everything will be fine." Okay, I think that when you do something like that, you're a damn coward. If you're going to get involved, then you get involved. You don't pussyfoot around. Where did that phrase come from? Who was using that? Oh, Ron DeSantis for his campaign. Stop pussyfooting around, he said.
Yeah, that was.
There you go. Now, see, that's a Ron DeSantis kind of approach to
Yeah.
Ukraine, or maybe, right? Stop pussyfooting around. Just get in there and get her done. I'm just saying, man, like, really, what the hell is the difference? You're gonna put guns into people's hands, send tanks, finance the whole thing, and then let them all say, "There you go, guys. Okay, see ya," and then you walk away? No, because then they all go and they get shot and they die and they're killing other people and you're facilitating war. And I think that's a very cowardly thing. Here's my position on it. If Joe Biden wants to support a war, if Vladimir Zelensky wants to go to war, and even if Putin wants to go to war, I'll tell you what, they should all get their damn guns and go, and they lead the charge, and they can start and they can fight. And if anybody wants to follow them into battle, then have at it. But they should lead the charge. They should be right there at the front and taking it for the team, because they're supposed to be the captains of the team. So get in there and get to work, pals. Like, I mean, really. But anything short of that, you're a damn coward as far as I'm concerned. So keep your damn guns, keep your damn tanks, and find a peaceful solution to all of this crap, because people are dying and this sucks. It is disgusting. It's immoral. And I think that all of the theatrics surrounding this, all of this, this whole thing is a facade. This is absolutely a Russia versus NATO war. They're just willing to fight to the last Ukrainian.
I got 2 points. I've made a note, so hopefully I can get these points out. And again, what you're saying, there is an argument to be made for that. Again, it's not one I'll make. It's not one I agree with. And here's my metaphors or analogies. Before I go into that, normally I'm kind of taking a step down because I usually don't use metaphors. I'm too clever for them. I use meta sixes. But anyway, now back to the. You should know already. I can't pass a bad pun.
You're not pissing me off, but you're making me groan.
Yeah. So my 2 points. Let me make it personal, using the argument you just said. All right. The hungry guy comes up to me. The hungry homeless guy comes up to me, comes up to Rick. Please give me a burger. Rick says, I can't give you a burger because if I get involved a little, then I'm going to be expected to give you my house, or I'm a coward for not giving you my house. That's your analogy. That's the charity one. Fire extinguisher. Your house has a minor fire. You come to me because you don't have a fire extinguisher, but you know I do. Rick, I'm sorry. I can't give you a fire extinguisher because, next you're going to expect me to get out my hose and fight the fire with you. I just got to wash my hands of the whole thing. Good luck. Hope your house don't burn down.
Well, I would say this, Joe. I understand what you're saying, but the analogy doesn't quite work for me because it's the United States, probably this, and the CIA, which is honestly, it's pretty clear through empirical evidence to support what I'm about to say. But it was the United States that set Ukraine's house on fire back in 2014 with the color revolution and the subsequent coup that took place there, which has allowed them to put, puppet dictators into power in Ukraine, to which we now have Vladimir Zelensky. So, if for your analysis to hold water for me, you would have to show me that the United States didn't do that, and it's pretty clear to me that they really did set Ukraine on fire back in 2014. So I think they actually have a responsibility to provide a fire extinguisher. But to me, a fire extinguisher would be a path to peace, not to provide more weapons, and not to actually undermine peace talks, which actually did take place, where they had a draft deal which had been initialed by all parties. But because Boris Johnson flew over there and acted on behalf of NATO and the interests of the United States, or at least the wishes of the Biden administration, they undermined that and basically told Zelensky there will be no peace deal. The fighting shall continue. So what they did at that point was, instead of giving them a fire extinguisher, they took a can of kerosene and dumped it all over the thing and threw an extra couple of matches on there to make sure it really exploded.
In a wonderful kumbaya, everything is clean world, that would be great. This is reality, however. You know what? The enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. I've got an article on that. I go into terror strikes. They can be a useful idiot or ally temporarily. Russia, Stalin was not our friend, was not an ally. He was a convenient, useful idiot at the time. We discussed that last time. He was a necessary evil to defeat a greater evil. Iran, the Shah of Iran, basically a puppet dictator of the West, but he was our dictator. And I loved him. And I wish he would have not been overthrown. Okay? So I'm not pretending to be pure on this, in that I'd like everyone to have freedom and independence and pure, clean elections, but I recognize that's not the world we live in. So in the intermedium, sometimes you have to indeed temporarily ally with people that are otherwise inconvenient and dirty and you'd rather not have anything to do with.
Okay. Well,
is that fair? Honest enough?
Well, I think we actually do agree on some points, and I think that's a positive thing. I just think there's some disagreements we have here on what led to this conflict and what the reasons are behind it. It's those, I guess, disagreements or different perspectives that I think are to some degree preventing peace from evolving from all of this. But, that's okay, because I think in the end, we both want the same thing, which is peace.
And one of the reasons we wanted Ukraine, rather than let Russia keep it or take it back and make it a Soviet bloc country, was, yes, guess what? There are biological warfare labs there. Oh my God. Guess what? A lot of them were left over from the Nazi regime. Some of them were left over from the Russians when the Soviet bloc collapsed and they retreated. Rather than us doing the proper thing and disbanding them and destroying them, we took them over. Now, that's another convenient talking point for Putin apologists. Putin's a hero. Did you hear? He's going in to destroy the biological weapons labs. A lot of them were his to begin with.
Well, this is a story that will be with us for some time to come, and all I can say is I do hope that we do find some way to resolve this, because it's devastating Ukraine. It's having a really negative impact on countries around the world. It's amazing the impact that this war is having on, honestly, everyone globally. It just drives home the point again that this is not just another little proxy war happening somewhere in the world between, that's being orchestrated by the superpowers. This is a more complex situation, and this one is very volatile. So we'll continue to follow it. And Joe, you know what? This has been a great conversation. You know what makes it so interesting? Why it's so good is because we don't agree. So we get to explore, a couple of sides of a very complex issue here tonight. So I appreciate it.
And we don't hate each other for it.
That's right.
We are two people that want to engage in truth, facts, evidence, logic, reason, not our snowflakey feelings. Now, I've already seen in the chat, like one person saying, they're Russians, not Soviets. Okay, Putin apologist. The former KGB guy who you deny says over and over, I'm going to put back the Soviet Union. He's not a Soviet. There's a difference. Spare me. Bye-bye. Blocked.
Okay, let's take a little break. And then when we come back, we'll move on to this story about the Supreme Court striking down affirmative action at a couple of schools, declaring affirmative action programs illegal. We'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so President Joe Biden is blasting the Supreme Court. He says that this affirmative action decision from the Supreme Court declaring affirmative action to be unconstitutional, illegal, can't be, in his words, the last word on this issue. He says the court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions, and I strongly, strongly disagree with the court's decision, Biden said during an address today at the White House. He's saying affirmative action is so misunderstood. He says, I believe our colleges are stronger when they are racially diverse. So I've got his whole address kind of queued up here. I'm going to run it for you. I strongly disagree with Joe Biden. Maybe we get him on the show and we can have a discussion like Joe and I just had. The other Joe, though, Joe Biden, not our Joe here on the show tonight. But I'd love to have a debate with him about this very issue, because I do see affirmative action as being systemically discriminatory. That's my view on it. But let's bring up the man himself. Anything you want to say before we let Sleepy Joe say his piece here, Joe?
Yeah. If not for cackling Kamala Harris, this guy would have been removed under the 25th Amendment.
Okay. All right. Let's let this roll. Here's Sleepy Joe addressing the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action.
45 years, the United States Supreme Court has recognized the college's freedom to decide how to build diverse student bodies and to meet their responsibility of opening doors of opportunity for every single American. In case after case, including recently, just as a few years ago in 2016, the court has affirmed and reaffirmed this view that colleges could use race not as a determinative factor for admission, but as one of the factors among many in deciding who to admit from a already qualified pool of applicants. Today, the court once again walked away from decades of precedent and as the dissent has made clear. The dissent states in today's decision, quote, rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress, end of quote. I agree with that statement from the dissent. The court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions. And I strongly disagree with the court's decision. Because affirmative action is so misunderstood, I want to be clear, make sure everybody's clear about what the law has been and what it has not been until today. Many people wrongly believe that affirmative action allows unqualified students to be admitted ahead of qualified students. This is not how college admissions work. Rather, colleges set out standards for admission, and every student has to meet those standards. Then and only then, after first meeting the qualifications required by the school, do colleges look at other factors in addition to their grades, such as race. The way it works in practice is this. Colleges first establish a qualified pool of candidates based on meeting certain grade, test scores, and other criteria. Then and only then, it is from this pool of applicants, all of whom have already met the school standards, that the class is chosen after weighing a wide range of factors, among them being race. You know, I've always believed that one of the greatest strengths of America, you're tired of hearing me say it, is our diversity. But I believe that. If you have any doubt about this, just look at the United States military. The finest fighting force in the history of the world. It's been a model of diversity. And it's not only made our nation better, stronger, but safer. I believe the same is true for our schools. I've always believed that the promise of America is big enough for everyone to succeed, and that every generation of Americans, we have benefited by opening the doors of opportunity just a little bit wider to include those who've been left behind. I believe our colleges are stronger when they're racially diverse. Our nation is stronger because we are tapping into the full range of talent in this nation. I also believe that while talent, creativity, and hard work are everywhere across this country, not equal opportunity. It is not everywhere across this country. We cannot let this decision be the last word. I want to emphasize, we cannot let this decision be the last word. While the court can render a decision, it cannot change what America stands for. America is an idea unique in the world, an idea of hope and opportunity, of possibilities, of giving everyone a fair shot, of leaving no one behind. We've never fully lived up to it, but we've never walked away from it either. We will not walk away from it now. We should never allow the country to walk away from the dream upon which it was founded. That opportunity is for everyone, not just a few. We need a new path forward, a path consistent with the law that protects diversity and expands opportunity. So today I want to offer some guidance to our nation's colleges as they review their admission systems after today's decision. Guidance that is consistent with today's decision. They should not abandon, let me say this again, they should not abandon their commitment to ensure student bodies of diverse backgrounds and experience that reflect all of America. What I propose for consideration is a new standard, where colleges take into account the adversity a student has overcome when selecting among qualified applicants. Let's be clear, under this new standard, just as was true under the earlier standard, students first have to be qualified applicants. They need the GPA and test scores to meet the school's standards. Once that test is met, then adversity should be considered, including students' lack of financial means, because we know too few students of low-income families, whether in big cities or rural communities, are getting an opportunity to go to college. When a poor kid, maybe the first in their family to go to college, gets the same grades and test scores as a wealthy kid, his whole family's gone to the most elite colleges in the country, and his path has been a lot easier. Well, the kid who faced tougher challenges has demonstrated more grit, more determination, and that should be a factor that colleges should take into account in admissions. And many still do. It also means examining where a student grew up and went to high school. It means understanding the particular hardships that each individual student has faced in life, including racial discrimination that individuals have faced in their own lives. The court says, quote, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an application's discussion of how race has affected his or her life, but be it through discrimination or inspiration or otherwise, end of quote. Because the truth is, we all know it, discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Today's decision does not change that. It's a simple fact. If a student had to overcome adversity on their path to education, college should recognize and value that. Our nation's colleges and universities should be engines of expanding opportunity through upward mobility. But today, too often, that's not the case. Statistics, one statistic, students from the top 1% of family incomes in America are 77 times more likely to get into elite college than one from the bottom 20% of family income. 77% greater opportunity. Today, for too many schools, the only people who benefit from the system are the wealthy and the well-connected. The odds have been stacked against working people for much too long. We need a higher education system that works for everyone, from Appalachia to Atlanta and to far beyond. We can and must do better, and we will. Today, I'm directing the Department of Education to analyze what practices help build a more inclusive and diverse student bodies and what practices hold that back. Practices like legacy admissions and other systems expand privilege instead of opportunity. Colleges and universities should continue their commitment to support, retain, and graduate diverse students and classes. And companies who are already realizing the value of diversity should not use this decision as an excuse to turn away from diversity either. We can't go backwards. I know today's court decision is a severe disappointment to so many people, including me, but we cannot let the decision be a permanent setback for the country. We need to keep an open door of opportunities. We need to remember that diversity is our strength. We have to find a way forward. We need to remember that the promise of America is big enough for everyone to succeed. That's the work of my administration, and I'm always going to fight for that. And I want to thank you all. And I know you've been told I have a helicopter out there waiting to go up to do an interview in New York. I'll be talking more about this live interview. But thank you very much, and we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this. But we're not going to let this break us. Thank you.
Listen.
The Supreme Court has further to question its own legitimacy. Is this a rogue court?
This is not a normal court.
Should there be term limits for the justices, sir?
Oh, absolutely. Term limits for justices, but not anybody in Congress. The usual hypocrisy and duplicity, right? I mean, give me a break.
So, what are your thoughts on this ruling and his assessment?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of notes and talking points, but mouth of the South, I saw what you said, so I want to react to you. What you said was the Supreme Court ruled, and that should be it, right? If we lived in an actual constitutional republic still and a rule of law land, that would be true. However, with all due respect, so I hope you listen with the tough love perspective on Congress, because I'm not disagreeing with you. I absolutely agree with you. If things were the way we want them to be rather than the way they currently are, because here's what's going to happen. And did you not hear Chief Justice Moron Roberts? A very disappointing appointment. How is it that Republicans appoint justices and 50% of them are disappointments, but leftists, looned, fascocrats, every single justice they appoint is a 100% leftist ideologue, not a judge. They are a liberal court activist, a Democrat operative, not a judge. ruling on law or the Constitution. So there's that. But here, history is going to repeat. Have we forgotten? We were here just a little while ago, but people have short memories. Have you seen the carefully crafted bullshit university responses already? We will work to fit the ruling while still maintaining our values. What are their values? Ignoring the Constitution, pandering, wokeism. That's their values. So affirmative action died. It should have, but it won't. Because here's what's going to happen. Just like with the case of University of Michigan a decade, maybe two ago, SCOTUS ruled affirmative action was unconstitutional then. What did they do then? They're going to do it now. They're going to get the lawyers, the professors, and the left-wing ideologue politicians in a room to say, okay, we can't call it quotas anymore. We can't call it a point system anymore. We can't call it affirmative action anymore. Maybe we shouldn't even call it diversity anymore. What's the new scam, the new con, the new legalistic verbiage garbage that says nothing so that we could say it says X on Monday, and when it's challenged, oh, no, it means Y on Tuesday, but by Friday it means Z. So it says everything but nothing at all, right? Our legalized system. We are no longer a constitutional rule of law republic. We are a legalized, legal fair system, and they will just change the language, create a new term, say, okay, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing the same thing, but it's really this now. Challenge us in court. Take another 25 years to get to SCOTUS, because liberal activist judges will say, oh, yeah, it's not the same thing, until it gets to SCOTUS and it gets knocked down again. That's the left game all the time. How have some not learned this yet? So, yeah, I'd love to be giddy about this ruling, but I've been involved in politics since 1978. I've seen it all before. It's going to repeat. That's my thoughts.
And so your position on the issue itself is what? That affirmative action is systemically racist itself, as I've stated?
It is absolutely a violation of all the civil rights law, or throw those out, because the civil rights laws in and of themselves were unnecessary. Am I going to blow some minds there? The 13th, 14th, 15th Republican amendments ended slavery, slavery officially, gave all the right to vote and all that stuff. The Civil Rights Acts that were put together by Republicans were politicians trying to grandstand. They're unnecessary. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If we were really living in a real constitutional republic world today, it's not anymore. It's distorted. So yes, blatantly racist. As Martin Luther King said, has everything to do with your skin tone, nothing to do with your character. And we're not supposed to do that. And the left doesn't want this to go away, right? The Democrats, KKK rats, they have segregation today in the universities. They are saying out there now, I just saw it on Newsmax before the show, out there saying, this is going to bring about segregation in the universities again.
It's already,
you are segregating you're doing it in the dorms, black-only dorms, black-only graduations. You're doing it already. So again, psychological projection. The left accusing you what they have been doing for countless centuries, right? Even Alan Dershowitz says he's been fighting for this ruling for 50 years. But it ain't over. It's not going away. The left never takes no for an answer. They create a new scheme, a new con, a new scam, a new way to sucker people into buying handout votes from them.
Is
If
that what
we-
Alan Dershowitz said today?
Well, he didn't say all that. He said he's been fighting for 50 years, but indeed it's not done. And one last thing, if the left really wanted to end the issue of the dichotomy, or not, I don't want that word, the differences and the problems of urban centers, not a black issue, black, white, pink, purple, urban center decay and failed K-12 education because of declining ever since Jimmy Carter, the moron, created the Department of Education unconstitutionally. It's a 10th Amendment state rights issue. But if we wanted to fix the issue at the university, we'd actually fix K through 12 so that the urban kids actually learned like the rural kids do.
So let's listen to what Alan Dershowitz actually had to say about this today. Law professor, Democrat, who sometimes appears to behave like a Republican.
Well, he's
The
a
Supreme
good
Court
lawyer.
finally said unequivocally that race cannot be considered as part of admission in schools that are either funded by the government or receive government assistance. That's the right result, and it moves America toward becoming a colorblind society. I will be dealing with this issue in great detail on my podcast.
So he's going to deal with it in great detail on his podcast, but he says it's the right decision. I agree with him. I think that the country does need to be colorblind. That may be perceived as a conservative position, but I think it's the right decision. And and one of the reasons is because you touched on this. We're already have been getting segregation reintroduced into the education system, into these educational institutions through identity politics, wokeism, and affirmative action programs. It's the whole system is inherently racist, and it's just manifesting. Well, you're seeing segregation as a result of it, which is not what the result was supposed to be. It was supposed to bring people together, provide equal opportunity, not necessarily just an equal outcome, regardless of the meritocracy aspects of this.
Yeah. I'm typing as we're talking here. The issue is, and many Democrats say this, you could see it in the polls, they want school choice. They want vouchers. As someone else in the chat said, government doesn't pay, taxpayers pay. It's our damn money. Give not a credit, because a credit implies you have to spend it to get it back from the government. No, a voucher with zero strings attached. It's your damn money. You should get to choose the school that gets that money that will educate your child. We must create choice, competition, so that the public schools are forced to get better, or they'll be all shut down. And I have no problem with them all being shut down. I have no problem with private schools. And if you can homeschool, do that.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we move on to the next story of the day?
Let me check. I wrote down New York gun laws. What does New York gun laws have to do with this case? The SCOTUS ruled just a few years ago. New York put gun control illegal, unconstitutional under the Second Amendment gun control laws in place. It took decades. SCOTUS struck it down. What did New York do? Exactly what I said is going to happen here. They got all together and said, what is the new scam, the new con, the new legalese language to say, we're not doing that, we're doing this. This is different. Challenge us in court. And it takes another 2 decades. Meanwhile, they are violating our rights again.
I think your assessment might be quite accurate. That's I think a valid.
Yeah.
A
And
valid
then I had
yeah.
one last talking point I wrote down. Going to go deep into the weeds of the racism issue. All right. Because segregation in the universities, a left thing yet again, ain't the only thing going on. Reparations. That word, right? What happened when Lincoln promised 40 acres and a mule to freed slaves to be taken from the plantation owners of the time, so that freed slaves, not all blacks, I'm sorry, snowflakes, read history, not all slaves were blacks, not all blacks were slaves. Facts, not feelings, not your spin and distortion, what fits your false narratives. 40 acres and a mule when reparations made sense. They murdered him for it, right? They assassinated him. And why? Because Abraham Lincoln, the Republican, the abolitionist party president, had Andrew Johnson, a Democrat, as vice president, so that there was a unity ticket to help get Lincoln elected in the first place. They South Demo KKK rats knew we murder Lincoln, Johnson comes in, goes soft on the South, reparations are dead. Reparations now giving somebody a check for having nothing to do with what happened then, taken from people who had nothing to do with that back then, is stupid. It's ridiculous. It's unconstitutional. There's no logic, no reason, no common sense. It's, again, all money laundering and buying votes. The money pool will mainly be funneled to people who have the right think, right? If you're Orwellian wrong think, you won't see the money. This is money laundering and buying votes, pure and simple.
Okay. So also tonight, what are we looking at here? I'll tell you what, let's go to a brief break. We've got more news coming up right after this. I just have to get these next clips lined up. I shall return. Do not go away.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Are you there, Joe? He stepped away for just a second. So in France, protests, people have taken to the streets. More than 40,000 police officers are being deployed as a result. This in the the wake of the shooting of a 17-year-old driver. Law enforcement fired tear gas at thousands of people who have been protesting, including the teen's mother, who had gathered for a vigil march in the Paris suburb of Nanterre earlier today. A lot of media reporting on this worldwide. And we've seen Twitter buses and trams shut down Thursday today to ensure the safety of passengers and workers there in France. So we've seen violence erupt as a result of all this, burned cars in the streets. The teenager who was shot has been identified as Nahel and was shot during a traffic stop, which was captured on video earlier this week on Tuesday. Prosecutors say the officer who fired the fatal shot has been placed in provisional detention and has been given a preliminary charge of voluntary homicide. The Interior Minister says 170 officers have been injured in this unrest, and 150 people have been arrested so far. This as fires have been set during a night of incredible violence. France's president, Emmanuel Macron, says the violence is totally unjustifiable and made that statement during an emergency security meeting earlier today. So this comes a day after Macron called for calm, told reporters the killing was inexplicable and inexcusable, and went on to say nothing justifies the death of a young person. So what happened? Well, Nanterre prosecutor Pascal Prache, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, said police spotted a Mercedes with Polish license plates that was quickly heading toward a neighborhood near a university there in Paris. And they attempted to stop the car twice because the driver looked very young. So he says the driver went through a red light, committed a number of traffic violations. The prosecution, the government prosecutor, has pointed to surveillance footage, trying to show what the justification was for pulling the car over. The car was eventually forced to stop at another stoplight. Officers then drew their weapons, told the driver to pull over. He turned off the ignition, or was told to turn off the ignition and get out of the car, rather. Video shows two officers leaning into the driver's side window of the car, and then one shot was fired. The car drove away. Footage shows the car after it crashes too. So we're going to first go to some of this footage that we're getting from France, showing all of this, these protests. I mean, just massive, massive protests. And we're seeing tonight now that as many as 40,000 police officers being brought to bear this issue. So any thoughts on this, Joe?
Well, yeah, these are difficult issues, difficult times. I have a couple pieces at thelibertybeacon.com about the left's weakness on crime is inviting more crime, and cops are getting antsy, and incidents are I don't know all the details, all the facts. There may be more to come out. I want to be careful, but let me go on the record and say George Floyd is the only one responsible for George Floyd's death. Now, are there bad cops? Absolutely. I back the blue. My book, in part, is dedicated to Leo's military, those who protect and serve and fight and protect us, right? But again, black, white, gray. It's not all black or white. I'm not going to be dumb enough to say 100% of all cops are perfect and must be defended always for any reason. That's stupid. If a cop does something wrong, I want him removed from the force. Absolutely, positively. But Michael Brown, George Floyd, Eric Gardner, so many. The list goes on and on and on. Sorry, not sorry. Criminals resisting arrest, the only ones responsible for their deaths. Had they succumbed, been arrested, Tom McDonald, the Canadian rapper, right? He's got a couple of funny songs about straight white male, about, being arrested and getting off because of white privilege. Cops aren't out there trying to assassinate blacks. Look at the damn stats. Spare me, spare me, spare me. More blacks are killed at the hands of other blacks than white cops in the history of the planet worldwide. These are facts, not feelings. Now, do some bad incidents occur and those cops need to be held accountable? Absolutely, positively. But stop with the defending criminals and, but they're victims. They're criminals because they're victims of society. Oh, give me a break.
So this is the footage of the incident that has resulted in all of the protests. Let's take a look. There's the yellow car, and the cop's about to lean into the window. And again, I don't think you can see, in detail inside the car what happens with regard to the shooting, but I would say viewer discretion is advised. So please be aware that you're about to look at something that you may find disturbing. Here we go. Car drives away. You heard a gunshot right there.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a personal...
And there's the car after it crashed.
Oh, putain. Chaud.
I want to know, though, because I will relate a personal story, kind of an analogy for this, is I want to hear the call. What did the dispatcher say about this call? What were the police responding to? What did the police say to the dispatcher? What all went on? The body cam footage. Here's a personal story. I have a friend a few years ago was indeed pulled over by the cops. All right. He was in a beat up old Chevy Cavalier driving on Telegraph Road. It's a 4-lane wide. Cop comes up behind him. He wasn't speeding, didn't change lanes improperly, uses his signals, was doing everything right. Okay, he could have copped an attitude, no pun intended. All right, why is this pig pulling me over? He didn't do that, thankfully, and I'll get into why. All of a sudden, 3 more cop cars come racing up, surround him, swarm him, get out with their guns drawn. Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Why? In this case, we may not know what they were thinking till we hear from them. They thought my friend was a bank robber because they were responding to him in a car, matching a description and the right kind of car to a bank robbery. They thought they were encountering a bank robber. Okay, so you don't know what they go through unless if you open your mind that their lives are on the line every day. They never know that a simple traffic stop for speeding may not end their life.
This is being described as Francis George Floyd moment by many. Do you think this response from the public, these protests on this scale, are happening organically, that they are truly justified, or do you think that there is some sort of psychological or propagandistic manipulation taking place to encourage people or get people to go out and react in this manner.
Yet another black lying Marxists, BLM, black lying Marxists. Do Black Lives Matter? Yeah. Ready, snowflakes? All lives matter. I hope I pissed you off. Too bleeping bad if I did. All lives matter. Black, white, pink, purple. Don't care. They all matter. They all are precious. Even the unborn that are being slaughtered in the womb, disproportionate numbers are black. Do you hear black lying Marxists or the NAACP saying anything? No, in fact, the NAACP gives money to Planned Slaughterhood to kill more black babies. So lives matter, and sometimes things go wrong, but this is trumped up black lying Marxist anti-Western bull. This is not about justice. If you cared about justice, you would actually pick a case that mattered. Like Emmett Till, the Emmett Till case. I sympathize with him and his family, but not George Floyd. And this guy, I don't know, don't have enough facts.
So why do you think we are seeing the public react with these demonstrations on this scale at this time over this particular incident? This is not the only incident of this type that has taken place. What was it about this incident, or why is this happening now? What was the actual catalyst in your estimation? Sir, the floor is yours.
And it isn't necessarily this incident. It just happens at the right time, the right place, that they are able to then mobilize and make an issue where no issue may exist. We don't know yet. The facts aren't there, but this isn't about justice. This isn't about racism. Again, more blacks are actually killed by black cops even. Private citizen blacks kill more blacks than whites kill blacks. Fact, not feeling, FBI statistics. All right, more black cops kill black citizen criminals than white cops kill blacks because the stigma, the spotlight they know they're going to be under. They're hesitant to pull the trigger unless they feel.
But my question to you, Joe, is what gets the people out into the streets? Is there an organization behind this that is like engaging in a public relations or propaganda campaign in order to get people upset, to get them out into the streets? Or is it just that video went viral organically and people are so upset about it that they all poured out into the street on this scale? What do you think?
Yeah, black lying Marxists. I will say it over and over again. That's not Black Lives Matter movement. They are Marxists just looking to bring down the West, and any incident, any excuse to trump up an issue of racism, they will make use of. Now, they may have had other incidents. They could have. They just weren't able to coordinate fast enough, or didn't think they would get the press they needed to do it. Soros is a big funder of it. But of course, these black lying Marxist leaders are now under threat of going to jail for what? Extortion and money laundering. They claim they would use money to help the black community. What did they do? They bought mansions in the white gated community neighborhoods to escape fellow blacks. That tells you how much they care about their fellow black people. I care about all people. I want the people to be lived. I don't want them killed in the womb. I don't want them assassinated by a criminal. An innocent person killed by a gangbanger drive-by. I don't want anyone killed by a cop. But if you are an actual criminal and you bring it on yourself, no sympathy whatsoever, George.
So if I'm understanding your position on this correctly, you think it's just too early to know what the facts are. So you're kind of reserving judgment on what really happened.
I can only speak in the broad generalization of how we got to where we are and the other incidents that have occurred that are like this. Yes, I need to know more. I need to hear if there's a 911 call, any discussion between the dispatchers and the cops. What did the cops think they were getting into? Like with my friend, just an innocent guy driving down the road, swarmed by a bunch of cops, thinking he's a bank robber. Cooperate. Don't resist. Fight it in court. That's rule of law. That's the justice. This social justice is just Marxist, pathetical corruptness, woke bull, anti-Western garbage.
Yeah, well, I'm reserving judgment on this as well because I don't know what happened. I don't know what was said when that officer leaned in the window. I don't know. I just don't know. So I can't sit here and pass judgment on this. I can tell you this, though, when you get protests like this, when you had a situation like we had with George Floyd, it's very difficult to get to the truth because you're dealing now with emotion and the court of public opinion, which is formed through propaganda, through psychological manipulation, through tactics employed in the media, and political pressure applied. So
that's why they immediately march. They do not want any time for facts to come out. It's all about getting people hyped on emotional hysterics. The left-wing snowflakes drummed up into a frenzy. I'm not going to even hear the facts when they come out. I don't care. My mind's made up. My feelings trump your facts. Give me a break. And it's like the DIE. We call it DIE in Michigan, not DEI. Diversity, inclusion. The US and Canada are the most diverse nations on the planet any time of this planet's history. We are diverse and inclusive, right?
Lori says, tonight's guest, that would be you, Joe, is Rick's way of torturing us. So you're doing your job. My hat goes off to you. You're pissing people off. Way to go. I can't wait to get Lori on here to get you two guys discussing various issues.
Well, I'm always going to piss off leftist snowflakes. They only have their feelings. They get upset. They can't defend anything with facts and data like I have tonight.
Well, I have to get you guys together, and then by the end of whatever program that might be, we'll have you guys as friends.
But yet she's still tuned in, right? Just so she could whine and get her name on the screen. That's what leftist snowflakes do. Virtue signal online. Never do anything that actually matters and fixes anything. Like I talked about the schools. Fix K through 12. It solves the university problem. The left doesn't want to fix anything.
We're gonna get her on here. We're gonna get you two connected so you can. I'm gonna sit back here like this, and just listen. It'll be a great show.
But no, let me go back to the DIE, right? Diversity, inclusion. The left, I've got an article on thelibertybeacon.com from a couple months ago about the latest wokeism bull, right? All of a sudden now, and I looked it up. This is real. This isn't some hyperbole. Some on the left are saying,
wait a minute, stop. That's a Joe Biden thing. Take it back. And that's not hyperbole, man.
Come on, man. Right. But Rick, if you like black women with big butts, that's racism. That's cultural appropriation. Only blacks can like big butts. And this is real. A psychologist, a professor, there's a dozen people. Butts. Yeah, this is the new racism. Even though Sir Mix-a-Lot actually appropriated that from Queen. Remember Queen? fat bottom girls. So
Uh-huh.
the white people actually owned it first if you want to go cultural appropriation route. Now, Tom McDonald, I mentioned him before, the Canadian rapper. He's got a song, I forget which one it is, about people giving him shit about having the blonde hair, white guy, blue eyes, has his hair in braids. Oh my God, that's cultural appropriation. He says, screw you. I wear them in braids because I think it's hella awesome and I'm paying homage. This is the great North American melting pot. We are diverse and inclusive, and together we come together, mix to make our own unique new culture. It's not cultural appropriation. This is Marxist wokist bullshit.
All I can say, Joe, is I think you're trying to get me into trouble because I'll tell you this, all right? No matter what my wife says to me, no matter how many times she asks, I will never, ever, ever say that I like big butts. And that is the end of that discussion right there. We'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I noticed that we have, I don't know how many hundreds of people watching across the platforms, maybe about 600 or so at the moment, maybe more, I'm not sure. But if you haven't done it, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, subscribe over on Rumble. Make sure you share on Facebook, and do whatever other things you got to do on all the other social media platforms to help the channel, because we need all the help we can get, especially as we deal with censorship issues. And censorship is something we're going to be talking about in just a moment. And I was just told when we were coming on the air from somebody who was sharing content that was posted earlier this morning from last night's show in the form of a short, that they were flagged for false information. And I won't say on which media platform, that social media platform that happened, because I don't want them to come after us or other people who might have been sharing the content as well. But that is the reality of what's going on out there. We're getting hammered. We're demonetized across all of these different platforms, and they're suppressing our content. They're not, because of all the censorship laws that are in place now, they're not ranking us as they should. In fact, I've noticed on YouTube that as we get, like, say, another 100 subscribers, we get to the next level, and then they take them away, and then we get another 100 and they take them away. And it's been happening like day after day after day. We get another 100, they take them away. Like, that is not people unsubscribing to that level. It takes a while for it to get up, and then they take away 100. And then it gets up, and they take up over and over again. This is happening. They're not allowing the channel to grow. So you have to push through that. The way you can help us do that is simply by liking the channel. Just like this broadcast on YouTube, and subscribe if you haven't done that, and make sure you hit the notification bell. That really helps on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe over on Rumble, because we're growing over there. That's the free speech platform. That's our way of also making sure that if we do get kicked off YouTube permanently, we still will be seen over there, and we continue to grow on Rumble. So, and the other way you can support the show is to donate at freedomreporters.com. freedomreporters.com. We also have a donation page set up at maverickdonations.com. That's actually a Christian organization, and they are awesome people over there at Give, Send, Go. That URL takes you to our donation page. Let me just see if I can bring that up. It's maverickdonations.com in any event. And yeah, they are fantastic people. There it is right there, maverickdonations.com. And I have another special thing just tonight. I only have a few of these, but these are long sleeve shirts with the Maverick logo on them right there. And they are really, really nice. High quality, high thread count, high quality shirts, long sleeve, navy blue with an embroidered Maverick News logo, highly sought after, very collectible. A donation of $70 or more, and I will send you one of these shirts. Now, I only have a few, so first come, first serve. I believe we have extra large, large, and I might have medium, but extra large and large for sure. And they're really nice, but I don't have very many. I'd like to keep one for myself, but I suspect they'll get scooped up by people who would like to have them. So $70 or more, first people to donate tonight will be the proud recipient and bearer of this Maverick apparel, Maverick News apparel.
Long sleeve, that's a very good idea for all those cold, too damn cold days. I stay in Michigan. I hate winter here even, but I've been to Canada many times for your Canadian Thanksgiving. And while it's still reasonable here, I have to have my winter coat up there for your Canadian Thanksgiving. So you definitely need long sleeves. But you said, please like. Why would anybody like your show, especially when I'm on? Did you see the chat? All the left-wing snowflakes going, whoa, he hurt my feelings. Why would they like the show?
Well, they like it because it's emotionally
triggering,
stimulating,
triggering.
So for that, Joe, I thank you very much. I'm open to people of all different opinions. You know, I'll talk to anybody. So everybody's welcome on here. And that's the truth. And some people are intimidated. They won't come on because they're afraid. And that's fine too, I guess. But you're missing out, because I will talk to anybody about really anything.
We have that with the Savaged and Filtered podcast that I'm co-host. We've had the sweaty penguin, as he's known. Get it? Penguins are sweating because of global warming. And he talked about fracking being caused by explosions. He said explosions 5 times. I debunked all his talking points. And the last one being, stop saying explosions. That's not how fracking works. And he said, I never said explosions. That's like Warner Wolf from the old Imus show, right? Let's go to the videotape. You said it 5 times. They spew these talking points, and when challenged, it's, I don't know what to say, how to react, because they're dealing with feelings, not fact. But same thing with Savage Unfiltered podcast. We try to get leftists on. They won't come on because they are destroyed. Every talking point, they lie, and we destroy them with facts, reality, stats, easily evidenced facts you can find on DuckDuckGo, not the suppressed bull on Google where you get Mother Jones or Huffington Post and CNN propaganda to give your confirmation bias and help your feelings to maintain your delusional bubble.
So in Canada today, Google has joined Meta slash Facebook slash Instagram in saying that they're going to now remove all news content from its platforms. Won't rank it, won't acknowledge it, won't promote it, won't carry it. And this is the fallout from Canada's Bill C-18, which is going to become law. And when it becomes law, it would force social media companies carrying content from Canada's legacy news media outlets, that would force these social media companies to pay those legacy news organizations fees to carry that content. They'd have to pay for it. And so Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, they've gone back to the government now. Google now joining this chorus of really two main companies, the two biggest, saying, no, we're not going to pay. And we are not, and so we're not going to carry the content. You can't make us carry the content. And if you're going to make us pay, then we're not going to carry it. So this was an unintended consequence of government action again through Bill C-18. As a result, Canadians will end up with less choice, less content. The news organizations will end up with less distribution and less revenue, because they're also going further than that tonight. And they're saying that any kind of revenue or payments going to these media companies currently will be suspended because the content won't be there anymore. And in addition to that, Google and Facebook, Google specifically, they have some programs in place where they actually have had like online news projects that they've been facilitating and hiring some mainstream media journalists to produce content for Google platforms. And they're saying all of that will be discontinued as well. So the Online News Act requires both companies to enter into agreements with news publishers and to pay them for news content that appears on their sites if it helps them generate money. It's not clear what the government might do as a result of this, but since 2008, nearly 500 newsrooms across Canada have been shut down. And that is because the industry has changed. That's because the technology has changed. Social media companies have essentially taken the revenue away from television and radio stations and newspapers. And the mainstream legacy media has been unable to adapt over the years and come up with a new business model that really works, because Google, Facebook, there's Twitter, they're taking the money. They've got the ad revenue, and that's because the platforms are much more advanced technologically. You can track and remarket, put ads in front of people with specific interests. It's much more powerful than television, radio in their traditional formats, those traditional media formats. So as a result, we're going to see serious repercussions as a result of this in terms of how content is produced, where it's produced, how it's distributed, whether there will actually end up being any mainstream legacy media. In the end, Joe, I think in Canada anyway, you might see that what was intended to be the savior of mainstream legacy media, it might end up actually being the final nail in their coffin. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, several. I made a few notes. In the U.S., it's an issue of Section 201 of the old Telecommunications and Internet Act. And the problem here, there are no former IT people like me in Congress or in the Parliament of Canada. You've got a bunch of dumb politicians who need their kid to help them to log in to get their email know nothing about this stuff, enacting dumb laws for who? Follow the money, right? Who's laundering them and enriching them to pass things beneficial to them rather than open communication for the people. And the companies want to hide behind the, here in the US, that old Section 201 protections. Like I myself am still banned at J. Leonard Detroit on Twitter, can't see it. 250,000 followers, gone, can't see it. Why? Because in 2016, Hillary Clinton and Politico literally attacked me and 199 other US citizens on Twitter, the start of the Russian collusion delusion and fake Steele dossier narrative. They started on Twitter with 200 of us. We now call ourselves the Mighty 200. I put a link to the article in the chat room there to see all the details. Hillary Clinton literally identified me as an enemy of the state. No, I'm an enemy of the left. I am an enemy of the deep state buffoons. That includes rhinos and CINOs too. For all you out there who think I'm some Republican Party hack, I'm not. I'm a constitutionalist, as I've said before. So yeah, they hide behind the laws or try to buy favorable inaction of new laws. And yeah, you've got to have a backup of your stuff on Rumble, Brighteon, there's two other ones, right? Rumble is definitely one of the good ones. They seem to be the most free. YouTube has made me pull stuff. They have censored me. I had to pull it down to keep my channel. So yeah, I know censorship since 2016 firsthand.
So, yeah, I don't know what this means for platforms like us. I mean, we're independent. We're a news-based program. I don't know what Google and Facebook, Meta will do with us when all of this finally happens, and it is just around the corner. It's bad enough that we get hammered with censorship through these platforms now because of the government getting involved and sticking their nose in, honestly, where I don't think it belongs, because they're trying to manipulate the market, manipulate the medium, manipulate the way these social media platforms are used. As a result of that, we're going to get kicked off because of them.
Yeah, the only, hopefully, but probably not even, the hope here is that if you make your channel private, they have to subscribe. You monetize as a private channel, and the only people who see your content then are people who pay to buy your content. And if somebody's offended, cancel.
Well, we're
Get the
not
hell out.
well, we're not monetized anyway. They've demonetized us. We get nothing from any of these platforms, like zero. It doesn't matter. So
No,
they're
but
not
that's-
paying us. They're not paying
no.
us anyhow. So I don't know
Yeah.
why they would kick us off, other than to say, well, because the government was going to force us to pay you. But I've received no correspondence because we're independent. I think this is directed, was supposed to be directed toward helping CBC, CTV, Global, City, CP24, the big corporate media entities, right?
Follow the money. It's
for
like the
us,
other show. We need the Parliament and Congress to have laws to wear jackets like NASCAR with patches of what lobbyists, what companies fund you. Follow the money. And
yeah, I said this last
CBC.
night. Yeah, we need these politicians. We need legislation, laws in place that force the politicians to make all of their financial records public, all of them, so that we know exactly where they're getting paid, how they're getting paid, where their money's coming in, where it's going out, so that we can see, because that's how you end corruption.
Yeah. And they also buy off the big tech platforms as part of the process too.
Yeah.
Right? Who's got the money? CBC's got plenty of money for paid ads on Google and YouTube and Amazon. So they've got the purchased influence.
Yes. So that kind of wraps up that. What else do we have to talk about tonight? So we talked about Dershowitz. Oh yes, and we kind of skipped over this. I'm going to backtrack a bit here. But Canada's Defense Minister Anita Anand meeting with her British counterpart today, talking about the war in Ukraine, Canada's commitment to supporting NATO, and they're talking as well about sending, I guess, Canadian ships to clear mines. I think, but let's just listen in a bit.
Renforcer la sécurité dans les eaux européennes. In addition to our efforts at sea, both Canada and the UK are leading NATO enhanced forward presence battle groups, Canada in Latvia, the UK in Estonia. Last year, our alliance agreed to upgrade these battle groups from battalion to brigade size where and when required to protect our eastern flank. As part of these efforts, I announced earlier this month that Canada will deploy 15 Leopard 2A4M battle tanks to Latvia, as well as supporting personnel and equipment. Our commitment to NATO is ironclad, and we will always do whatever it takes to defend every inch of NATO territory. In closing, Canada and the United Kingdom share a deep and historic relationship, forged on the battlefields where we defended the values of peace and freedom for all people. Our countries have an unbreakable bond and an abiding faith in democracy. This relationship is resolute and will serve our people well long into the future. Now I will turn it over to you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
And they
Thank
want
you,
to
Rita, and,
accelerate
Thank
Ukraine's
you visiting.
inclusion into NATO.
We have met, I think, 3 times in as many weeks, or 3 weeks for Singapore and NATO, and now today. And I'm delighted to host you, and I'm glad that we managed to further our relationship. We had a good, strong bilateral session this morning where we discussed everything from Ukraine to the High North to NATO and indeed to the Pacific. I think that's really important that we continue that strong relationship that Anita has talked about going back hundreds of years and certainly side by side. And Canada Day, which is officially the 1st of July, is also the first day of the Somme. And we shouldn't forget that 57,000 Commonwealth soldiers lost their lives on that day. Canada has gained 77 Victoria Crosses in both the First and the Second World War, fighting side by side on Juno Beach in D-Day. And, you know, even as recently as 2014, after the invasion of Crimea by Russia, the illegal invasion, there was 4 nations that stayed and trained in op orbital, and alongside the British were the Swedish, the United States, and Canada, the Fab 4, the original 4 who were there, not at the time of the February invasion 21, but have been there since the beginning, making sure Ukraine can stand on its own 2 feet and help it with its capacity building. And you know, I think that when I think back to the day of the recent illegal invasion, right there by our side, the next day when we had a initial donor conference, Canada was there on the line immediately, standing up for the values that we both share and making sure that we started the process that has led to this international community's response. And you know, Canada's position is very, very important in that. It says it's not just a European problem, it's a global challenge.
Something happened to the audio.
Uh-oh.
Hang on a second here.
Uh-oh. The censors are on to you, Rick.
Yeah, it appears
The
so.
deep state, the NSA is invading your feed.
Yeah. Hang on, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's bring him back up. We've got him back.
Whatever, which is why he's got £40 billion for his army modernization program of his equipment. It's why, since I've been defense secretary, they've had a 20% real-term increase in their budget of equipment. It is why they have a greater proportion of spend in the department than they've had before, because the army needs modernizing. So by all means, we can criticize the state of the army that's been inherited, but you can't criticize that this government's determined to modernize that army and bring it forward. Challenger 3, Boxer, I fixed Ajax. Ajax is now being delivered to the frontline units to start their training. The purchase, very quick purchase of Archer to replace the AS-90s when we donated them from Ukraine. AS-90 was out of date. We needed to start the next process. All of those things have taken place under my watch and General Patrick's, and they will continue to do so. There are decisions around longer-term deep fire platforms, decisions around, and indeed I can give you another one, the Apache E grade that we've upgraded. A lot of money gone into the army. It'll be a very modern army, but it has to do that time to get there. On NATO, look, Britain's position, going right back to, I think, Bucharest, was that we believe Ukraine should be able to join NATO. Obviously, other members it was less than 30 then, but a number of members had a different view, and NATO can only go forward in a unanimous position, but we started the process. That's why we were there in 2014, partly to help Ukraine's NATO capabilities build and its capacity so that it would start on that program. I think it went from associate member, and then the next discussion was membership action plan. Obviously, Sweden and Finland didn't have any of that, and I think that opens a very fair question about should at Vilnius we just skip that and say that subject to other conditions, Ukraine should be able to come in and join. After all, they're going to have the most experienced land forces in Europe and probably one of the most heavily armed countries in Europe. I think we should absolutely look at skipping the membership action plan. But of course, we have to put some realism in this space that there are 31 members of NATO now, and we have to all move together. But yes, the direction of travel should be towards NATO membership, but I can't promise that at the Vilnius summit, you're going to resolve those 31. What I think we could be able to do is remove more barriers for Ukraine so that when this is over, Ukraine moves towards more security guarantees, more support. And right now, we are working in the United Kingdom on a range of issues to ensure that after this conflict, Ukraine is safer.
Along those lines, Canada and Ukraine share a bond and a friendship that is longstanding. We have 1.4 million Canadian Ukrainians in our country, and the people-to-people ties, the bilateral ties, run very deep. In 2015, when we started Operation Unifier, we did that because we wanted to continue to ensure that Ukrainian armed forces had what they needed in order to ensure a repeat of 2014 in Crimea did not occur again. And under Operation Unifier, we've trained over 36,000 members of the Ukrainian armed forces. And I paint that picture for you to highlight the strength, the longevity, the importance of the relationship between our two countries, Canada and Ukraine. And with that in mind, we are very supportive of Ukraine's work with NATO members collaboratively. And when the conditions are right, we will support Ukraine's ascension to NATO. Of course, this is an increasingly important issue. Right now, Ukraine needs to win this war. And as Minister of National Defense, my job is to ensure that the allocated funding that we've been given, now another $500 million on top of the $1 billion that we've already spent, is put to good use in service of Ukraine's efforts to fight and win this war, to ensure the security of its democracy and its longevity in terms of peace and stability. Thank you.
BBC.
Wow. Can't hear the question.
No, I think the first thing is to make sure that we're all moving in an upward direction. Since I became Defense Secretary, we've reversed the pattern that's happened in the United Kingdom. We've actually had a real terms increase. We're going to top out at over 50 billion pounds, 24
Money,
billion pounds
money,
extra
money,
since
money,
I was
money.
Defense Secretary.
Just keep on
That's an
shoveling the
important-
money.
First battle is the
It's
cultural
like,
shift.
wow.
The defense is no longer some sort of discretionary spend stuck on the side of government.
It's like
that it
never
is, in
ending
fact,
flow
a
of
core
money.
part of our defense, of our job as a government.
Is it ever going to
And
end?
that's why I was
No.
really determined to make sure that we see that shift towards a growing defense budget rather than a shrinking one. You know, defense budget 2015 here was cut, I think, by 7%.
Unbelievable.
We're on the upward trajectory, over 2%.
Okay, enough. You know what? Like, I'm going to say it again. He talked a little bit about this. He said, you know, he listed off some of the different weapons that they were sending, and it's all basically stuff that's becoming obsolete. This is kind of, in my view, a bit of a scam, because what these NATO countries are doing is they're sending old weapons that need to be on the verge. They're on the verge of needing to be replaced, or in some cases, they're already obsolete. They throw them into Ukraine, they get them blown up. Now the Ukrainians are on the hook for, you know, the price of that stuff. They're indebted because, oh, we need help, send weapons. So they send their junk, it gets blowed up, and then the Ukrainians have to pay for it in the long run. That's the way I see a lot of this stuff. I have to tell you, Joe, and your mic is muted, sir. Your
Sorry,
microphone.
yeah, I muted it because I had to cough. But yeah, do you want to send them our latest tech? You definitely don't want that to fall in enemy hands.
Only a little bit of it, because what they do over there with the latest tech is they field test it so that they get some metrics on how well it works. And
many are saying Russia is doing that in Ukraine to test their hypersonics. And another thing that we are indeed doing in Ukraine by proxy is testing our newer version of Patriot battery missiles, right? The upgrades. Your hypersonics, sorry, guess what? You thought they could penetrate? They're garbage. Our missile system defenses shoot them down on a daily basis. So it's a message not just to Russia from the US,
is that actually
but
true?
China.
Is that actually true? Like I know that there was a claim that they had shot down at least one hypersonic missile. Have you seen other reports or evidence to suggest that it's happening regularly?
I've seen it in reverse. Many have been shot down. One or two have gotten through, but it's like anything, right? Nothing's perfect. Something is bound to get through on occasion. So we are defensively capable against the hypersonics to a large degree. And that was an uncertainty before the last couple of years. China was boasting they were going to bury us in hypersonic missiles when they go into Taiwan, if they go into Taiwan. That is their threat, their deterrent against us defending Taiwan. Don't you dare. Our hypersonics can destroy you. Well, we've proven no, they can't. They won't.
Well, I think this has become a garage sale dumping ground for obsolete and near obsolete weapon systems from the West. But there are no bargains. They're charging full pop. They're just, you know, put it on the tab for Ukraine. And, you know, we'll hold those people accountable for the debt down the road. And what they can't pay for, well, we'll just get the taxpayers on our end to pick up the rest of the bill.
Well, the other thing is troops. We've agreed we don't want troops. We don't want advisors. The advisors will lead to troops. People saying, oh, let's send them F-16s and M1 Abrams tanks.
Well, they want to send the F-16s because those are old jets too.
Well,
they're nearing the end of their life cycle, and they want to replace all that stuff. So let's sell them all off. Let's get Ukraine to buy them.
M1
Great
Abrams
idea.
aren't, though. M1 Abrams aren't, and you'd have to send advisors to train them. That's why I say send the F-16s to Poland. They know how to use them. They're trained on them. They can use them to defend themselves. They can send the old MiGs to Ukraine that the Ukrainian pilots can fly tomorrow. You don't have to wait 6 months to train them on F-16s. The M1s, they say, could take a year and a half because they're so darn complicated, overly complicated. That's why you send the M1s to Germany, and Germany sends the older Tigers to Ukraine that they can use tomorrow, not next year.
So, in other news, the fallout from the Bud Light fiasco, advertising fiasco, continues. And Dylan Mulvaney is complaining about mental stress. Here's Dylan explaining.
Hi. One thing I will not tolerate people saying about me is that I don't like beer. Because I love beer and I always have. I built my platform on being honest with you, and what I'm about to tell you might sound like old news, but you know that feeling when you have something uncomfy like sitting on your chest? That's how I feel right now. So this feels like right too. I took a brand deal with a company that I love and posted a sponsored video to my page. It must have been a slow news week because the way that this ad got blown up, you would have thought it was like on a billboard or on a TV commercial or something major. But no, it was just an Instagram video. And the wildest part is that they also sent me one can with my face on it. You might have seen it. And funny story, I had the can around my house, but then I realized, wait, I need to protect this can. So I hid it somewhere, and now I can't find it because I hid it so well. But when I do find it, I feel like it needs to go in a museum, preferably behind bulletproof glass. And you might be thinking, Dylan, why bring it up now? I'm bringing it up because what transpired from that video was more bullying and transphobia than I could have ever imagined. And I should have made this video months ago, but I didn't. And I was scared and I was scared of more backlash, and I felt personally guilty for what transpired. So I patiently waited for things to get better. But surprise, they haven't really. And I was waiting for the brand to reach out to me, but they never did. And for months now, I've been scared to leave my house. I have been ridiculed in public. I've been followed. And I have felt a loneliness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I'm not telling you this because I want your pity. I am telling you this because if this is my experience from a very privileged perspective, know that it is much, much worse for other trans people. For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all. Because
Sorry for the freezing there, folks.
it gives customers permission to be as transphobic and hateful as they want. And the hate doesn't end with me. It has.
Well, this freezing is not good.
Serious and great consequences for the rest of our community. And you know, we're customers too. I know a lot of trans and queer people who love beer, and I have some lesbian friends who could drink some of those haters under the table. But to turn a blind eye and pretend everything is okay, it just isn't enough.
Freezing
right now. And you might say, but Dylan, I don't want to get political. Babe, supporting trans people, it shouldn't be political. There should be nothing controversial or divisive about working with us. And I know it's possible because I've worked with some fantastic companies who care.
Again, sorry for the freezing. I don't know why this video is freezing.
But caring about the LGBTQ plus community requires a lot more than just a donation somewhere during Pride Month. Huh. And all this to say, bottom line is that if you follow me, if I've made you smile, if you care about me, I need you to care about every trans person. And I need you to support us, and I need you to stand by us. And hey, it's still Pride Month.
Freezing.
So I'm going to celebrate being alive.
Freezing.
And I'm going to celebrate the trans people in my life and the ones I haven't met yet.
More freezing.
And I'm going to celebrate the fact that no matter how many thousands of horrible messages or news anchors misgendering me or companies going silent, that I can look in the mirror and see the woman that I am and that I love being. And I know you were probably here for the tea of it all, but I would love for something productive to come from this. So there is a link in my bio to the Trans Law Center, who is doing some wonderful work if you have the means to donate. And to the good people out there, I love ya. I really do. And cheers, but only if you're of legal drinking age. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Okay, take it away, Joe.
Yeah, there's a difference. All right, I've written about this many a times. There's a chapter in my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, Love Over Fake Hate, right? Gay and lesbian friends and I get along just fine. They are about tolerance and acceptance, and the what I do in the privacy of my own home doesn't affect someone else is not a problem. I agree. That's between them and God. I will not condemn you. I will not condone your lifestyle. I do not condemn you. That is reserved for the Lord as a constitutionalist. Okay. But my gay and lesbian friends also agree. An idiot like that is not a traditional rainbow. It is now part of the rainbow alphabet mafia. They're not gay and lesbian. It's the rainbow alphabet mafia now. It's all about gaytivism, gaytivists engaging in gaytivism. A couple more terms that I coined years ago. And again, not everybody on the left, not everybody in the LGBTQ elemental XYZ community agrees with all that nonsense. They don't. Savaged Unfiltered, we interviewed Lavon DuPont, a trans woman. Okay, I'm putting that in air quotes. Just you've got to have a common language to use, defined terms to talk. Lavon DuPont, male, dresses as female, married to a male. All right, I don't condone it. I don't condemn it. We can be friends. She is a Trump supporter and in no way supports this gaytivists engaging in gaytivism, grooming children, and trying to legalize pedophilia, which is what it always was from the start when Soros was funding NAMBLA to fight for all this stuff. This was always the end goal. Legalize pedophilia. Michigan, we have legalized pedophilia. The last election, Proposal 3, they claimed it was about codifying Roe v. Wade into law, right? About abortion, a reasonable early term abortion. But no, people didn't read it. In that bill, literally, sexual freedom is what it's defined as. And under sexual freedom, children can engage in their own sexual freedom with adults. They have legalized pedophilia in Michigan by negating the statutory rape laws. We used to protect children. And again, do whatever the bleep you want in the privacy of your home. But when you're out there parading around trying to recruit children into pedophilia, red line shall never be crossed.
So I just wonder if these companies will ever figure out I guess when will they figure out that they need to kind of go back in time and just take the politics out of their marketing? That's where I'm at.
Follow the money, right? Always follow the money. And I don't get this part yet. They're thinking longer term somehow this is going to work. You all know the ESG term, right? The Canadian, not the Canadian, like China's social scoring. You get a scoring. And if you don't do enough for the rainbow alphabet mafia, you get taken down points. If you don't support blackline Marxists killing cops, and they have done that, look it up. That's the facts, not feelings. This is reality, ideal in facts, easily evidenced through DuckDuckGo or Jibberoo or FreeSpoke, not hidden crap on Google that funnels you to left-wing propaganda sites instead of actual facts. All right? But they chase these ESG dollars through BlackRock and other woke investment conglomerations, right? And your money is being funneled. Your retirement accounts are in BlackRock funneling this ESG stuff. So these companies like Target are chasing ESG pennies while they bleed billions of real dollars out the back door by pissing off their customer. But apparently they think long term that's all coming back.
So we'll move on here. The wildfire smoke, all these wildfires here in Canada, making headlines again tonight in the United States with mainstream media and on a national scale. ABC, this is their version of the story tonight, saying wildfire smoke live updates. Major League Baseball game delayed amid Pittsburgh's poor air quality. So, Joe, you're down there in Detroit. What is the air like in Detroit? Because I'm about an hour away from you. And yesterday I was up in London, which is another hour east of here. And, I've never seen smoke here like this before, but it isn't so bad that, it's alarming to me in the way that I think the media wants me to be alarmed. I showed some pictures and I can probably put them back up here shortly. But, when I see images, mainstream media images related to this, I think some of them are photoshopped, others are not. But give me a true assessment of what the air quality is like in Detroit tonight.
Well, it's a little hazy. I mean, it is, right? But I'm 60 years old. So spare me. Oh my God, the air quality is so bad. We're all going to die. Paranoia, emotional hysteric, snowflake, chickens with their head cut off crap, right? I was at Holy Cow Creamery the other day to get a root beer float and was joking with Dana there. She comes to the window and says hi. And I say, Dana, is that you? I can hear you, but I can't quite see you through the haze. A joke. But 60 years old, I remember back when, with all the factories that used to be around, the smog 1,000 times worse than this minor haze we're dealing with now.
Look at this caption. It says, these particles can easily enter the body through the nose, throat, and eyes and can travel to the lungs, with some of the smallest particles even circulating in the bloodstream. And that's from the Environmental Protection Agency. Well, yeah,
Duh.
I mean, if you're anything in the air can be sucked in and, taken into your lungs, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. I saw a story today, too, talking about tumors associated with wildfire smoke. Oh, my God, I'm going to get a tumor if I go outside. It's like,
fear
I
porn.
Know, well,
fear porn, selling fear porn. It's like we're on YouTube, so I'm going to go slow and carefully choose my words. It's like that what that came from where, and those fake things that you can get to supposedly prevent you from getting it. That doesn't, right?
Yeah.
It can kill you if you have comorbidities. Smoke, same thing, right? People smoke cigarettes their entire life. Cigarettes don't kill everyone that smokes them. Different people's bodies have different tolerances. If you have asthma, this is an issue for you. If you have other conditions, maybe COPD, this is an issue for you. But for most people, it's a non-problem, but it's fear porn, hysteria, excuses to spend more federal dollars. blaming the wildfires on global warming climate hoax when a lot of these have been set by arsonists, environmentalists, supposed environmentalists, envirotards, scorching land because there are new suburbs there. They are trying to burn down the suburbs and instead what? Burning tens of thousands of acres instead because idiots like Justin Trudeau, uh, Joe Biden, Barack Obama before him refused to let us properly manage the forest, to create breaks, to reservoir water breaks, to have them to create breaks and or to fight the wildfires when they inevitably happen. It's nature. Fires happen due to lightning strikes, but these aren't that. These are arsons or campfires, man-made, but not global warming, man-made fires. And it's like the old terror strikes, the atrocity chapter, I think it is, I talk about the U.S. mainland was struck and terrorized during World War II. It was kept quiet in the press, but the Japanese used balloon bombs. Now, do you care a little more about balloons? China doesn't need to send over an EMP or balloon bombs like the Japanese did during World War II to burn down our forests, but North Korea or Iran, who don't have ICBMs, could do that.
Yeah, well, the reality is they're still investigating. Out in Alberta, for instance, the provincial government there has committed to investigating these fires, and they are very concerned that some of these have been intentionally set, possibly by environmentalist activists, or who knows who the truth is. We just don't know. And there's your phone again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we don't know. And until we get more facts, we still don't know. But when I'm outside walking around, and I'll bring up some photos for you that we had here last night. If they're still here, are they still here? Maybe they're not. Oh, here they are up here. Yeah. So this was yesterday. Today, actually, where I live, it's a little bit better than it was yesterday. That's not photoshopped. You can see the sun there, that little dot. That was around just after noon yesterday. And it's hazy in the sky. It's gray. It's not like deep yellow, brown, like a lot of these, like some of the photos that I'm seeing in mainstream media, where I'm sure they're photoshopped or shot in a particular way to get that effect. And I know how I could do that myself.
That is another issue.
Like,
I'm glad you brought that up, right? Yeah. Deep fakes. We talked about, or I talked about AI with somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. You could get the AI to deep fake anything you want, right? For a false narrative.
Well, I mean, these pictures, I think, it's how you shoot the stuff. It's shooting into the sun at a particular time to get the orange and brownish tint, and then you manipulate it a little bit in Photoshop. You shoot it in RAW format so that you can adjust all the the exposure and all of the colors in different way. And it just then and you zoom in so you get more and more smoke condensed I talked about it the other night. So that's the reality here. But I know that in some areas it's worse, much worse than it is here. But I mean, I'm just kind of trying, I take it in stride. It's like, okay, there's some smoke and it's unprecedented. Yes. But I don't think I'm going to die today from it. And it's just, it's like everything else with the media. They try and scare the crap out of you. It's a problem. It's a serious problem. We need to put these fires out. We need to find out what happened. Yes, it's a big issue. Yeah, it's bad to see the smoke. I know that people with asthma have problems, but you know what I'm saying. They're making the most of it. Never let a crisis go to waste, especially for the mainstream media.
Clickbait, anything to try to sell fear porn, to get eyeballs, to get the ad revenue that's on the pages.
And then people from various political groups, they use the issue too to further their agenda, right, and their narrative. So they latch onto it, and it's because of this or it's because of that, and it depends on what their political motivations might be, how they talk about the issue, right? So
I'd like to get whether or not you agree with me that fires are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
What we do or don't do is the problem here. We don't manage the forest. We need to,
right.
The envirotards. Oh my God, you might upset Bambi. You might displace Bambi. If I create a clearing, a break, Bambi might have to move 100 feet. Well, you know what bleeping disturbs Bambi more? Being burnt to a crisp in a fire, you moron.
Yeah, well, this is exactly right. I mean, if you don't have proper forestry management to clear out areas where you have, downed brush that becomes tinder dry, and then it becomes basically kindling for a forest fire. If you don't manage some of that stuff, then you get what we have now as well. And so this is a result in some areas, it's the result of improper or poor forest management practices.
And then
that's government.
It blows out of control too fast for us to be able to put it out, because they didn't let us clear the kindling, make clearing breaks, and the runoff of water is another thing. Like in California, they claim, oh my God, we're all going to die of thirst. It's a drought. Man-made, not global warming, leftist moron made, because they will not let the snow melt be reservoired. They want to let it run off into the ocean to preserve what? The delta smelt. So let's let billions of creatures die, but you know what? We're going to save 1,000 delta smelt. Oh my God, what great logic, you leftist morons.
Well, here's some photos from ABC News from the baseball game in Pittsburgh between the Pirates and the Padres. And I mean, I think those photos are probably accurate. I don't think those have been photoshopped in any significant way. I don't know about that one. That one looks photoshopped. These two though look like they're just shot straight up, and it's probably a pretty accurate representation. It's pretty smoky there.
Yeah, but you notice too, the leftists in the United States didn't give a damn about the Canadian wildfires until New York City, where most of the leftist liberal control mechanisms are affected. Then oh my God, we got to do something. Not a peep about California wildfires or Utah or Montana. We have fires in upper Michigan. Not a peep about those. But the minute Canadian wildfires affect them in New York, oh my God, it's a catastrophe.
Yeah, if it hadn't affected New York, they wouldn't have paid any attention to this.
Nope.
Every Canadian could have been deep fried in the forest, and every house lost, every igloo melted.
Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton, Joe
cared.
Biden, whatever,
Canada,
again,
where's that?
They don't care about anything but their power control. And once it presented a crisis to not go to waste, not Alinsky, who was it? Zeke Emanuel said that, right? Don't let a crisis go to waste. Now that they have the crisis, how can we launder money to our friends, our family, our donors to pretend we're fixing it? They don't give a whit about any of us, just their power and control and how they can launder our money into their or their friends' pockets.
Wow. So I'm just going to ask you this as we kind of get into the last leg here of the program tonight, Joe. What are your thoughts on RFK Jr. and his bid for the presidency?
Yeah, one last thought on the fires to
Sure.
tie it back what I said before about the schools. They don't want to fix it. They want the problem to bitch about and have an excuse to launder money over. Like the wildfires, the forest management. We could fix this overnight, taking away the regulations and allowing those forests to be managed. Yes, fires would not go away, but they would be less of a problem, less of an issue. We'd get in there, put them out as quick as they tamp out. A few would still got out of control, but we would have the equipment to fight those rather than it's like in a battle. You don't want a three-front war. You want to fight on one front. We don't have enough resources, equipment, manpower, or water to fight a million fires going at once. So again, we could fix it. They don't want to. They refuse to. They block any of us that try to actually fix it. Now, RFK. I think I said on your last show, one good Kennedy ever, JFK. The only good Kennedy. RFK says some good stuff. Again, black, white, lots of gray. No one is pure evil. No one is a saint, right? It doesn't happen. Like they say, even Hitler loved dogs. Hitler created the Autobahn. We like that idea. Eisenhower used it as a model for the U.S. interstate system, right? Trudeau, I'm sure, loves puppies, right? I hate the bastard. If I get stuck in an elevator with him, in order to not kill him, the discussion would have to be about puppies, because that's probably the only good thing about him. He might like puppies. So to avoid me strangling him to death and throwing him down the elevator shaft, we talk about puppies. So no one is all good. No one is pure evil, right? It's gray matter spectrum. RFK is a nut. He says some good things. I'm glad. I hope he goes full Nader on Biden, if you'll get that reference. Nader cost Al Gore Florida, which cost them the election. That was Ralph Nader's doing. Just like Joe, I forget her name, the libertarian candidate, cost Trump 4 of 6 battleground states. Not speculation. You can look at the data. We did the math, right? 4 of the 6 battleground states, had the libertarian not been in, obviously not all of them would have voted. Discount 50% of them.
So are you a Trumper? Are you a Trump guy?
Yeah, I'm Don, not Ron currently, but his 6-year-old antics are tiring. His, like MLK, content of character. Sorry, Trump has piss poor character, but his policy was pretty good, except for that you know what that came from you know where, Operation Warp Speed. He still refuses to admit that was another federal waste of money, government boondoggle that didn't deliver what it promised. We didn't get the polio-like you know what. We got flu you know what instead that don't inoculate and make anyone immune to anything.
So this is a clip from Town Hall on News Nation last night, where RFK was asked about Donald Trump's view of him. Let's listen to this and I'll get your response.
You say that you're a Democrat, but you're getting a lot of support from a lot of leading voices on the right, like Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, former President Donald Trump. Many Democrats fear that you're a spoiler in the race, that you will damage President Biden in the primary and grease the skids for former President Trump to return to the Oval Office. This week, former President Trump said about you, Kennedy is smart and he's a common sense guy. What kind of man do you think Donald Trump is?
Well, you know, here's what I'm not going to do in this race. I'm not going to attack other people personally. I don't think it's good for our country. And I think, you know, what I'm trying to do in this race is bring people together, is to try to bridge the divide between Americans. And guess what? when my dad died and we took this train ride from, this 7.5 hour train ride that was supposed to be 2 hours, I was with him when he died in Los Angeles, and then we brought his body from New York, Penn Station to Union Station and Washington, D.C. And it was a 2.5 hour ride, but it took 7.5 hours because there were 2.5 million people on that train track. And it was the cross-section of America and all of the major urban stations in Trenton, Newark, Wilmington, and Baltimore. There were Black Americans singing Battle Hymn of the Republic. There were whites in the rural areas who are holding up signs, "Goodbye, Bobby, pray for us, Bobby," American flags, standing, saluting. 4 years later, and they had supported my father in the primaries in 1968. 4 years later, in 1972, they were not supporting my father, and they were not supporting George McGovern, who was aligned with my father on all these issues. Instead, the vast majority of them were supporting George Wallace. And, my father was able to harness these populist energies. In the last day of his life, he won the most rural state in this country, South Dakota, and the most urban. He was able to bridge the divide among people who would otherwise be Republican, but wanted somebody who was common sense, who was able to appeal to their idealism, who was able to find the hero in each of them, who was able to get them to transcend narrow self-interest and see themselves as part of a community and part of this, incredible American adventure in modeling self-governance for the rest of the world. And so I'm proud that President Trump likes me, even though I don't agree with him on most of his issues. Because I don't want to alienate people. I want to bring people together. I'm proud that all these people like me and that I have independent supporters and Democratic supporters, and that I'm able to bring a lot of people. Every Democrat says, I want to end the polarization. But how do you do that without talking to people who don't agree with you? How do you do that without appealing to people? My purpose is to find the issues, the values that we have in common, rather than, focus on the issues and the personalities that keep us all apart.
So, go ahead, Joe.
Well, the assassination. Let's talk about that elephant in the room. JFK, again, great guy, cut taxes, right? Because he realized, like George W. Bush and Trump and Reagan, you cut the rates. There's a Laffer curve. You cut the rates, it actually brings in more in taxes, not less. The revenue to the Treasury goes up because our people are then spending it, and they are not hiding it. They are investing it in companies, which then pay taxes, despite the left Bernie Sanders, he doesn't pay any taxes crap. I mean, I partially agree there. There should be that we enacted the alternative minimum tax in the U.S. years ago. It's a joke now. It's garbage. It was meant to mean rich people and corporations, there was a floor or a ceiling, however you wish to look at it, right? You can't write off all your income. You have to pay a certain minimum tax. And I'm for that. I think GE should indeed pay some in taxes. They shouldn't be able to use all this climate garbage write-offs.
But what do you think about Trump? Specifically, he was talking about how he's proud that Trump actually likes him. It's a rare moment to hear Donald Trump say something complimentary about a political rival, especially someone like RFK Jr. Why do you think we're seeing or hearing those kinds of things from Donald Trump with regard to RFK Jr.? Why isn't he attacking him or making up some name?
Is strategic. I mentioned Nader, right? Trump hopes that RFK, he wants to talk him up. If he can't defeat Biden in the primary, he wants to see an RFK Mansion independent ticket that would draw away more Democrat votes than it would Republican votes. A reverse Perot or a Perot-like situation. Like Nader pulled some votes from Gore. That cost him that election. That doesn't normally happen. Like HW and Clinton and Perot, studies have debunked over and over and over. Perot pulled more disaffected Democrats away than he pulled Republicans. He did
Do you not see?
cost
Do you not
that
see
election.
overlap between the two candidates on a lot of these issues? Just a lot of similarities,
Well,
actually.
they're both trying to be populists. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's the new thing. I can't be a liberal. I can't be a conservative. So let's try this new scam. I'm a popular. We're all populists now. No, liberalism. Oh, you can't. Conservative. No, 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 no. This is a new middle ground. It's all bullshit to sell a narrative, to sell themselves, to sucker people into votes. But yeah, it's strategic on Trump's part. He knows RFK will probably pull some Republicans, but he will pull more Democrats. And the key here is in the US, we have the Electoral College, right? JFK won the presidency because the union bosses in Chicago were on YouTube, so I got to be careful, right? Kind of helped fudge that for JFK, so he won that election. All right. So this stuff's been going on forever, but it's strategic. RFK should pull more Democrats than Republicans, but what matters
Is he going to get the nomination? Otherwise, this is all a moot discussion.
In what state is what matters, because we have the Electoral College. The battleground states are the only states that
Is
matter.
he going? Will he be the Democrat nominee?
No, but hopefully him and Manchin then run as independents. That's the angle people are hoping for.
Is that actually a possible path given the system? Like, are there not deadlines that would run in conflict with that? So if he's there till the end, running against Biden for the nomination, would he have enough time to actually do that?
Well, again, with our electoral system, it is not federal law. The states' rights apply here, and elections are actually run by the states. So it's a state by state thing. Think back to Perot, all right? He was going to challenge either the Democrat or Republican, decided to go independent.
Well, if he runs as an independent, he's dead in the water anyway, because independents never win. They don't stand a chance.
Yeah, but here's the workaround for RFK and Manchin. The Reform Party, which came out of the Perot thing, is on the ballot in many states. In several states, the key battleground states that matter, if he loses the Democrat nomination, and he will, they are going to make sure he doesn't get it, just like they made sure Bernie didn't get it. Again, we're on YouTube, got to be careful, right? But the Reform Party itself can put them on as their nominee on the ballot without the need to have run in a primary. They can do it at convention. So yes, there is a path. Not for RFK could never win the presidency, but he could run with Manchin on a reform ticket and take votes and mess up the process.
Well, I think he's running for the wrong party anyway. They don't want him. His views don't align with what the Democrats stand for today. He's the wrong candidate for the party. He's in the wrong place. He should be probably running over with the Republicans and challenging Trump right there. But
I think he should run for the Green Party, the Libertarian, or the Reform. He belongs with them. He's definitely not a platform Republican. I don't want anything to do with him. I don't want him messing in my party.
Well, Trump's not a traditional Republican either. He's a populist in my view. He's not just like a Republican. He's MAGA, and MAGA is basically dominating or taken over the Republican Party, at least for now, with Trump.
But he had enough issues that fit the platform. RFK doesn't. RFK would absolutely be a rhino. Now, Liz Cheney, not a rhino. She has a great voting record according to the platform. If you remove the impeachments, put her record without her name and without the impeachment in front of any Republican, and they're going to say, that's got to be our presidential nominee. She's perfect on paper, but she's a Republican with Trump derangement syndrome, which is why Wyoming kicked her to the curb.
Well, it's now 8:58 p.m. So I'm just going to throw it over to you, Joseph. Is there anything that you would like to wrap up with tonight?
I think we kind of hit, let me quickly run through the notes. I think we hit on everything that I was expecting us to, that I took notes on. So I think we, other than the wildfires thing, I see a note. I have an article on thelibertybeacon.com from a few weeks ago. You could go there, search bar, Joseph M. Leanard, find all my articles, called Democrats Always Ignore, We All Pay, the Law of Unintended Consequences, the natural law of unintended consequences. And it's not just Democrats, fascists, it's everybody on the left, right? I want this because it will make me feel good, and the consequences be damned. I don't care if it fixes anything. I want it because it feels good. And the wildfire things, as we discussed, it's in that article about the forest management. The unintended consequence is the death and destruction we're seeing of bad leftist environment policy, not allowing us to manage the forest and create breaks to stop these fires.
All right. And with that, we will wrap things up for this evening. Folks, it's been a great show. Joseph, thank you so much for coming back and doing this. It's been fun and a lively discussion, and a lot of common ground, but also some disagreement, which I think is healthy because we've had some great discussions. So I'm grateful to you for doing that.
Earnest disagreement based on attempted logic and reason, at least, not trumped up emotional hysterics. That is then when, no, bye, blocked. You're done. You're out of here. If you can back up your position based on facts, evidence, reality, we could still reach different conclusions. But as they say, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You're not entitled to your own set of facts. If you reach a different conclusion than I do on a common set of accepted evidenced facts, that's a difference of opinion. But if your opinion is derived on delusion, fake propaganda, spin, lies like the Steele dossier, they still cling to the Russian collusion. Trump's a Russian agent. Hillary bought the Steele dossier. It's been in report after report after report. It's debunked the Russian collusion, but they still cling to it. So you have a right to your opinion, not your own set of facts, like the Hunter Biden laptop. Your opinion is fine if it's based on reality, not delusion.
Okay, well, thank you, Joseph. And folks, if you haven't liked, shared, subscribed, please consider doing that. It would really help us out a lot. Subscribe over on Rumble, share on Facebook. You know the routine. And yeah, you can also donate at freedomreporters.com. And yeah, as I say, I've got a few of these shirts. First come, first serve. They're really nice ones, high quality, very nice shirts. This one is all unfolded, but embroidered, $70 or more, and I will send you one of those Maverick News shirts. And I will be back tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat station, Maverick News Channel. Catch you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.